because they're trying to prove that he is not following God's law and their biblical laws. Jesus goes up on a mountain and calls up his disciples. He has now named 12 of them as his apostles. They are now coming down the mountain, and he's going to talk to many disciples. Some of this will sound like the Sermon on the Mount, but it's actually called the Sermon on the Plain. Luke 6:17 through 26. He came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples, and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured, and all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out from him and healed them. Then he looked up at his disciples and said, Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you and revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what the ancestors did to the false prophets. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
In Psalms, we were taught to exalt God's instruction or laws or blessing or reward by following it. It is intended to teach the way of righteousness and warn of the woes of the evil or worldly way of living. The way of the wicked cannot last and is unproductive in society. These verses in Psalms instruct us to live our own lives and make wise choices. We are to be wise to the deceivers who will wrongly tempt us to take up that worldly life, and we should not live to their standards. We should be satisfied with our lives and feel responsibility to help those who are suffering from misfortune. It can be very tempting to follow the worldly crowd and get involved in all the fun things that they take part in. I think our warning here is not to follow the crowd, and we should be strong in our faith and our convictions. I believe my mother may have warned me about this once or twice when I was younger, and there's someone a little closer to me that's done that more than once. She's snickering back here. I believe my mother, in Luke, we are told to live our lives to the fullest without fear, not to worry about being poor or where we will get our food, not to worry about how we are treated and perceived by the non-believers, not that we should seek to be poor and hungry or weeping, but to be aware that these things can happen to us. We are also to be aware if we gain riches, we may lose our compassion for those who suffer. And we may reject our responsibility and duty to help the poor and needy. Jesus tells his disciples that they have left everything behind to follow him, and they will suffer in hunger, be poor, and they'll suffer many trials, but their reward in heaven will be great. Fred Craddock says, Jesus is making the official proclamation of the way of life inside and outside the reign of God. I often wonder about people who have nothing and are very happy with what they do have. Some of them have never seen all the things we are blessed to have and don't even realize some of those things exist. We are very blessed in this country when we think about some of the poor and starving nations of the world. I think of steak dinners, and that would really be great, a nice big prime rib, and they're happy to have a bowl of beans and a bowl of rice. The Pharisees believed that if you follow all of God's laws, that you would be well taken care of in life. They felt the rich were godly people and the poor were scoffers of God's law and got what they deserved. Some theologians believe in these verses Jesus is on the level with us in helping us to confront our lives and truthfully laying out our responsibilities, asking us to be a part of God's kingdom with our response to what we see in the world. Jesus says that to live you must die first. Not necessarily that you must physically die, but you must let some of your old habits and old ways of living die. In our adult Sunday school, we talked about some of those things that die and come back to life. We talked about seeds from vegetables, fruits, tomatoes. They die in the ground and spring forth with new life. We eat some of those things and they help us to continue our life. We talked about how sometimes we need to let our ideals and responses die so that we can grow and understand our role in God's world. Some of those things we discovered were ego, bias, always being right, fear of doing the wrong thing so we do nothing. And one of the harder ones was seeing something wrong, being done wrong, and doing nothing at all. We talked about how things change as you get older, and things that you don't understand when you were young suddenly become clear. I even heard one of my classmates say, "I have become my mother," and no name will be given there. I believe that Jesus was telling his disciples to hang on because they were going to have many roadblocks put up before them, but the prize at the end would make it all worthwhile. I believe that is still true today, that Jesus has given the instruction we need for today's living. He has given us the ability to make wise decisions in our lives and laid out our proper responsibilities. In these days' daily devotions for February 14th, the quote is appropriate for today and is still very applicable. Do not fret because of the wicked. Do not be envious of wrongdoers. Psalms 37:1. Through God's grace, He has shown His love and compassion for all mankind. I am reminded of Jesus' commandments to His disciples. First, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Second, thou shalt love your neighbor as thyself. The world would certainly be a different place if everyone followed these principles. We probably would have no war, starvation, homelessness, or poverty. When we see the way people behave today, this world could use a little more love and kindness. Maybe tomorrow we can think about our neighbors. As we celebrate Valentine's Day, we can direct a little love towards them. We have celebrated Valentine's Day since 276 AD, almost 2,000 years. This holiday started out as a pagan Roman holiday of fertility in hopes of better crops in the spring. It's fertility for a lot of other things, but crops in the spring works for this. St. Valentine was originally thought to have died as a martyr in about 270 AD. He was killed because he was helping Christians either escape from prison or complaining about the persecution of the Christians. Another story says that he fell in love with the jailer's daughter, and while he was in jail, he sent her a letter signing it, "Your Valentine." No one really knows, and the Catholic Church had him removed from the general Roman calendar in 1969. As I told the kids earlier, this holiday was used by the church to replace a pagan Roman holiday. It was called Lupercalia. If you follow that story, you can learn a lot about the twins Romulus and Remus, who were raised by wolves in a cave. I think that God would like Valentine's Day. We stop and think about the important people in our life. We share love and laughter, and we talk about the good times. I think the holiday fits into God's plan for us to take time to love one another. I remember when I was 5, 6 years old, and I was standing up in front of the church, and we were talking about Valentine's Day, Didn't mean too much to me until somebody gave me some candy, and that's kind of what we did today. But I want you all to think back when you were a little bit older than that, maybe 17, 18 years old, and you got your Valentine from that special person. It brought new meaning to Valentine's Day. I want you all to remember the Valentine you received when you're a little older, and that person was a lot more special. Valentine's Day isn't just about candy, jewelry, cards, and flowers. It's a special day for us to reflect on our lives and maybe share a little of ourselves with others. Sharing with others helps us to grow our community and help us to have a fuller life. I look out across this congregation and I have one hope. I hope that you all all have someone to spend your special day with. Thank you for letting me share my Valentine's Day with you. And God's people say,